Morning air was thick with the smell of brewed coffee and the faint perfume of expensive cologne drifting from employees hurrying into the glass tower that loomed over the city. The building was a symbol of wealth, power, and ambition, three things Emily Bennett had never possessed. She walked quickly, clutching her worn canvas bag, her shoes scuffed from years of use. The strap of the bag was fraying, but she kept it close to her chest as if it carried something more valuable than gold. Inside it lay her world, her lunch in a brown paper bag, a small stack of old textbooks she still studied when she had breaks, and most importantly, her diary. The diary wasn't just a notebook, it was her confidant, her secret place where she wrote everything she never dared to speak aloud. Her fears, her exhaustion, her hopes that seemed too fragile to share. Emily wrote in it every night after long shifts at her part-time cleaning job at Westwood Enterprises, the largest firm in the city, a place where she blended into the shadows, invisible to everyone except the security guard who sometimes nodded at her. This morning, she hurried through the lobby with her eyes down, careful not to brush against the sleek suits that passed her by. No one noticed her, which was how she preferred it. She didn't want to be seen, because being seen meant being judged. High above, on the top floor, Alexander Westwood, the CEO of the empire she worked for, was already in his office. His world was marble desks, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the skyline, and a life insulated from struggle. He wore a tailored suit that cost more than Emily's yearly rent and was flipping through reports with his usual cold efficiency. To his employees, he was a man of steel, a figure who demanded perfection and tolerated no weakness. To the world, he was a billionaire bachelor whose life seemed flawless. But inside, Alex carried silence so heavy that even money could not buy him freedom from it. Emily moved through the empty conference rooms with her cart, polishing tables, wiping glass, vacuuming carpets. Her life was a routine, but she held it together because she had no other choice. Her mother was bedridden, her younger brother was in school, and Emily's income was the thread holding their world from unraveling. Every penny she earned was stretched to cover medicine, tuition, and rent. Sometimes she skipped meals so her brother could eat. Sometimes she stayed awake until sunrise, staring at the ceiling, wondering how much longer she could keep going. But she never let anyone see her break. That afternoon, when she finished her shift, she realized with a jolt of panic that her bag felt too light. Her diary, her most precious belonging, was missing. She retraced her steps, searching under tables and in hallways, but it was nowhere to be found. Fear twisted in her chest. That diary contained her soul. If anyone found it, especially someone from the company, they would know too much. What Emily didn't know was that the diary had slipped under the conference table during her cleaning and was later picked up by a man in a sharp suit who had walked in for a late meeting. That man, pressed for time, carried it absent-mindedly upstairs and left it on the CEO's desk, thinking it was some kind of employee notebook. That evening, long after the building had emptied, Alex Westwood sat at his desk, restless. His eyes wandered to the small, battered diary on the corner of his desk. Something about it looked out of place in his perfect, sterile office. He picked it up, intending to set it aside for lost and found, but when he opened it, his hand froze. The handwriting was neat yet hurried, the ink sometimes smudged from tears. He began to read. The entries were simple but raw. She wrote about exhaustion, about the weight of responsibility crushing her young shoulders, about praying her mother's condition wouldn't worsen before she could save enough for treatment. She wrote about working in silence while the world around her sparkled with lives she could never afford. But what struck Alex most were not the hardships, it was the kindness in her words. She wrote about saving half her lunch for a homeless man outside the building because, as she said, even if I'm hungry, at least I have a roof. He doesn't. She wrote about encouraging her brother to dream big even though she couldn't afford to buy him proper shoes. She wrote about love, pure, selfless love that had no price tag. Alex's chest tightened. Each page pierced through the armor he had built around himself for years. He had everything, money, cars, luxury, yet he couldn't remember the last time someone had written about gratitude in the midst of struggle, or about hope even when the future looked impossible. And then he reached the last line. If one day I collapse from this weight, I hope the world will remember me not for being poor, but for being kind. His hand trembled. For the first time in years, Alexander Westwood froze. He leaned back in his chair, the city lights glowing behind him, but he didn't see them. All he could see was the invisible girl who had written this, someone who worked under his very roof, unnoticed. He felt something he hadn't in decades: shame. Shame for living in excess while someone in his building couldn't afford food. Shame for never noticing the quiet faces who kept his empire shining. And yet, mingled with that shame, was admiration so deep it unsettled him. The next morning, Emily entered the building again, her heart heavy. She had given up hope of finding the diary. She forced herself to keep her head down, to keep moving, to pretend everything was fine. But when she reached the hallway, a voice stopped her. "You dropped something." She turned, and froze. The man standing before her was Alexander Westwood himself, the CEO. He held her diary in his hand. Her blood turned cold. She wanted to snatch it and run, to disappear, but her legs wouldn't move. Her secret world had been read by the one man she least wanted to see it. But Alex didn't hand it over immediately. His eyes softened, something no one had seen in years. "I read it," he said quietly. "All of it." Emily's face burned with humiliation. Tears stung her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She whispered, "It wasn't meant for anyone else to read." "I know," he replied. His voice cracked ever so slightly. "But I'm glad I did." For the first time, the man of steel looked human. That moment was the beginning of something neither of them expected. Alex began to notice things he had never paid attention to. The tired cleaners who worked through the night, the security guards who never complained, the assistants who kept the office alive with their silent dedication. Emily's words had cracked open his blind world. He started small, installing better healthcare for low-level employees, raising wages, providing scholarships. And behind every decision, he thought of her words. Emily, at first, was wary. She didn't trust kindness from people in power. She had seen too much of the opposite. But Alex kept showing up, not in grand gestures, but in quiet ways. He arranged treatment for her mother, anonymously at first. He made sure her brother received a full scholarship. He never flaunted what he did, he simply acted. The more Emily saw, the more she realized he wasn't the cold man she had believed. And the more Alex spoke with her, the more he realized that wealth meant nothing compared to the richness of a heart that loved without conditions. Their worlds were miles apart, yet they found themselves walking closer every day. The diary that once held her secrets became the bridge between two lives that should never have touched, but did. And in that unlikely connection, both Emily and Alex discovered that kindness, no matter how small, has the power to change not just one life, but the world. Because sometimes, all it takes to melt the coldest heart is a single line written in honesty.